You are listening to Starter Girls Podcast with Jennifer Loading. Whether you are starting a project, starting a business, starting a brand, or starting a movement, we are here to talk about it. And I am super excited. I have Tanis Cornell here in the studio today. And so, Tanis, before I welcome you on, I want to give our audience a little bit of information about you. So, Tanis is CEO and co-owner of Executive Women's Forum International, a Dallas-based leadership accelerator dedicated to driving business results by increasing the representation of women in the C-suite and business ownership. In addition to their focus on development programs for women, EWF provides a wide variety of customized development programs for companies and teams to expand the leadership pipeline and drive business results for their clients. Tanis has a broad background in senior leadership positions ranging from Fortune 500 to startup environments that include an officer level position in a Fortune 1000 telecom company to an equity owner and board member of a private software firm. Tanis is a certified Lumina Learning practitioner, an accredited executive coach, a writer, and frequent public speaker on business growth, leadership, and women's career issues. She brings over 25 years of experience in strategic planning, executive management, sales, and alliance management. I love it, Tanis. You have a great bio, by the way. I had to get all that in there because it's just impressive. So welcome to the show. We're super excited to have you. Awesome, awesome. So what I want to do, I want to start off because I want to really dive into this. I want you to tell us a little bit about your story. Tell our listeners how this all came about, because this is when I'm reading all this, I'm like, wow. And you and I got together before the show, so I got to learn a little bit about you, but tell our listeners a little bit about how all this developed for you.
You know, you would have told me as a high school student, excuse me, where I would be today from a career perspective, I would have never imagined it. So it went in a lot of different directions. And when I got out of college, the first thing I did was be a high school speech teacher. And I did that, but at an early age, at 25 years old, I wound up getting divorced and got the house in that divorce. And I looked at that first paycheck and I went, I'm writing out my mortgage payment. And I went, wow, that's more than half my take-home pay. I don't think I can afford to do this. And it never occurred to me to sell the house. What occurred to me is that I needed to make more money. And so I wound up going into sales. I talked to friends and family, and they said, you know, you're a speech teacher, you're articulate, you know, you could do sales. So I very naively went, well, what a great idea. I'll go be a salesperson somewhere. And of course, everybody wanted sales experience, which I didn't have. But I was fortunate and landed a job with a pharmaceutical company. That was my first job. And then after that, wound up in technology and really spent most of the rest of my corporate career in technology, and then started my own business about 7 years ago. I'd been a partner in a software firm for a period of time, but really started my own business about 7 years ago. As a licensee of EWF, I had known the founder of that company for over 10 years. And as I contemplated leaving corporate America, I was a road warrior. And when I finally came to the decision, I really don't want to get on an airplane every week anymore, and contemplated leaving corporate America, I called her and we had this whole discussion about Dallas. And so I wound up becoming a licensee, starting the practice here in Dallas, building that practice, and then took on a business partner about 2.5 years ago, and we acquired the corporate entity about 2.5 years ago.
I love it. I love it. That is awesome. So tell us a little bit about what this company does for women. I know we talked about it, like I said prior, but so our listeners know what this is. How does this affect women? What are you guys doing? And tell us about that.
Well, we're a leadership development company, really with a mission to increase the representation of women in the executive ranks of corporate America and help women business owners grow and scale their business. And we do this not just because it's the right thing. Gender equity and gender balance, I mean, it is the right thing, but we do it because it's a business imperative for companies. There have been study after study after study that shows when companies have greater gender balance in their management ranks, they actually outperform companies that don't by a lot. They outperform financially. So there's true business advantage to having women as part of your management team. And so we look a lot at what are the barriers that are in place for women? How do we bring men into that dialogue about gender equity and gain their support and their advocacy for women? And there are some great male colleagues out there that think this is just as important an issue as women do, and really prepare women to take that next step in their career. The reality is women make up half the workforce when they enter the workforce. But with each layer of management, the percentage of women get lower and lower. So women don't get hired into management jobs as often, nor do they get promoted into management jobs as often.
That's interesting.
So we're not here to fix women, but we are here to equip women. We don't think women need fixing.
Yeah.
We want to equip women to really have the skill sets they need so that when a company looks down into their pipeline of leadership and they're ready to promote someone, that they see this equal balance of men and women as potential candidates.
Right.
And not only 20% or 30% candidates that are female.
I got a question that's coming to mind. This is totally off. And I'm thinking about this when you were saying as this leadership goes up and the women drops. What do you think that is? Why do you think that happens with women?
I think it's a combination of things. It's a combination of perception. What we know is that women, you've probably heard the phrase, men get promoted on potential, women get promoted because they've already proved they can do it.
Right.
And so there is some fact to that. And so that is one factor. Another factor, and this is where we coach a lot of the women that go through our programs, is that women have to speak up about what they want. I've got a really good story. There's a large entity here in Dallas that everybody would know their name if I said the name of the company. And they have this internal leadership program that executive staff nominate people to go through this executive leadership program every year. It's a one-year program.
Okay.
And this is for up-and-comers. These are people they've identified as high potential. And so they go get these nominations every year. And HR took a look at the nominations. This has been probably 3 or 4 years ago. And they went, whoa, there are very few women that have been nominated for this program. And so they said, well, that won't do. So they went out and they tapped all the executives on the shoulder and they said, hey, we didn't get near enough women nominees. And so you've really got to nominate more women. So sure enough, they got a lot more nominations in that were women. And once they get all the nominations, they go through this very rigorous process of assessments, numerous assessments that they put these candidates through. And then from those results, they select the people that will be in that year's program. When they did all the assessments, the women far outscored the men in this candidate pool. So the question was, why in the world weren't these women nominated in the first place? And as we discussed that, we really felt that there were 2 factors. There were assumptions from management about whether or not women were interested or aspired to those roles. So there were those gender, unconscious gender biases that can happen, as well as many of those women had never really spoken up about their desire to go into the leadership ranks. And so it's women learning how to advocate for themselves and speak up for themselves while still being perceived appropriately.
Right.
It is one of the challenges for women that when you speak up for yourself, that you can be seen as braggadocious, too aggressive. And so that's a challenge that women have to balance. I was talking to the talent development leadership of another Fortune 500 company in Dallas just recently, and they were talking about they'd done their annual review process, and they were reviewing the annual reviews for a lot of the women in management. And she said it was so frustrating because for all these women, she said, what we saw over and over and over again is that a woman was either told she was too aggressive or she was told she was not aggressive enough.
Right.
So
wow.
How do you balance that?
Yeah.
It's such a fine line for women in terms of what's deemed acceptable.
Right.
And I think that certainly we as women know that we can say the very same words as our male counterpart, and it's not always perceived in the same way. And that's perceived by both men and women. We're not just talking about this being a male issue.
Right.
Women also have these notions of how other women should behave, and we can be pretty hard on ourselves as well.
I would agree with you on all of this. Well, and that's why I wanted to ask your thoughts on that, because that's kind of what I wrestled with when I was working in these organizations with women, that we really had to overcome a lot of these perceived ideas. Right. And if a woman would be, say, hey, I want this, is she being too forward, or is she's, saying that this is my strength? Is she being too assertive and aggressive, And funny the story, I will tell you this. I was at a networking event prior to all this Corona. I tell everybody all the time I was networking 3-4 times a week.
I'm excited to get back to doing a little
networking
someday.
I know, me too. I miss all that. But it was so funny because I remember going into this event, and I don't know how this conversation, it was an introduction, but I told one of the girls, I said, I'm really good at this. If you wanted this is what I'm really good at. And I didn't think anything of this because this is something that I have really worked on getting good at. But I had another female come up to me that evening at the event, and she said, I overheard you saying that. And she said, I was so impressed that you were like, this is what I'm good at, And so I've talked to people about that. And for a very long time, even on this podcast, I would ask people, like, what is your strongest quality or your unique trait? Because that is a hard thing for women a lot of times to say, hey, I am good at communication, or I am really good at, maybe I'm good at doing accounting or whatever that is, And so I always talk about that, owning that.
It's really interesting you say that, because one of the programs that we lead is called our Emerging Leader Program. And this is for up and coming women leaders. They're not women who have yet achieved the senior and executive ranks, but they've been identified as high potential. They may already be in management, or they might be a high performance individual contributor. But one of the things we talk about in this course, and we require them to define it and refine it, is what is your superpower?
I love it.
And your superpower is not what you do.
Right.
It's about how you do it. Yeah. And we say, if you think about your entire career, what is the theme that tends to crop up in all of your jobs, that thing that you were recognized for, that thing that people told you you were really good at? What is that superpower for you? And then how do you articulate that to people you meet at a networking event? Or, hey, this is your first opportunity to meet the CEO. And he says, you introduce yourself, and he asks you what you do, instead of just saying, well, I'm a project manager.
Right.
What if you could articulate your superpower? Yeah. That would be much, much more memorable.
Right.
And so we work with them to articulate that superpower. And by the end of that 12-month program, they've got it down.
I love it. Can you imagine? Well, and how, think about the impact that has.
It does.
The difference it makes. You walk in there and someone asks you, hi, my name is this, I'm good at this. Or, it's that you own it and you feel good about it. It's almost like your own affirmation or your mantra,
Well, and in the very first class, we make them do it the very first time they introduce themselves. And they're going, oh, well, I think I'm good at this, or I guess I would say it's this. And by the end of that 12 months, they're going, and my superpower is, and they're owning it and articulating it.
I love it. I could see that transformation
It is a
too, and how it's
transformation.
really but there's something powerful about that. I'm with you 100% on that. Something really powerful about that. So is there a childhood experience maybe that impacted who you are today? I know you said you went into speech and you're a very eloquent speaker. I love that about you. Very good at communication. But was there something maybe in your childhood that maybe impacted who you are today? Or
I thought about that question, and I really couldn't come up with a particular item, but I was always pretty competitive, even as a young child, which for a female is not always positively viewed.
Sure.
But in my era, when I was growing up, there weren't sports for women.
Yeah.
And so there was really nothing from a sports perspective to do. So what I wound up gravitating to was speech and drama and debate. And so I was a competitive debater. I competed in speech tournaments throughout high school. And I look back on that experience, and it actually was fabulous training for what I wound up doing in corporate America. I wound up, after I quit teaching, my first job out of college was teaching high school speech, drama, and debate. But then as I gravitated into corporate America, I went into sales, and then into sales management and sales leadership. But being a debater, I said, that teaches you all you need to know about being a salesperson. Teaches you how to speak, how to think on your feet, how to prepare for objections in advance, all those things that really make people a great salesperson as well.
Right.
So it was great preparation for my career path.
That's
actually.
So awesome. No, and it's so funny. I would tell you, I don't know if I told you this when we chatted before, but I took public speaking in college. And this is so interesting because as a child, I was always in trouble for talking. Like I was always debating. I was always in trouble for talking. And then somewhere along the line between middle school and high school, I became very, very shy and withdrawn and took a public speaking class in college. And I was like, there will never be a time in my life where I will ever want to be in front of people talking, like ever. And then I went into sales, and to backtrack this, I started in 1999. I was in my late 20s. And I remember thinking about, oh my goodness, I have to talk to people. Like, how am I going to do this? But I learned so much in there
Right.
over those years. And a lot of that was, having to learn to think on your toes quickly, and how do you overcome objections, and how do you get people to do what you want them to do? You got to be persuasive, and you got to be influencing, and how
Right.
do you do all that? So yes, I wish I would have had the debate like you. That might have helped ease it along a
There's
little quicker. It took me a while to get to that point. So we talked about your company. Let's talk about, I always like to talk about the difficult thing. What would you say has been the most difficult, I guess maybe transition or thing you had to go through over the years, like getting to where you are now?
There were certainly failures along the way. I was in the telecommunications industry, so I've sat on both sides of the table during layoffs. I've done it to people and I've had it done to me. So I've certainly experienced that through my career. And I think that's made me certainly empathetic to people. And certainly right now with everything that's going on with COVID-19, a lot of people find themselves laid off
Right.
or furloughed through nothing, it had nothing to do with their performance. And it's really being able to be resilient from that, retool, figure out what you may need to do differently and be resilient from that and develop a new plan. And so I've always kind of been able to do that throughout my career.
I love it. I love it. And who would you say has been your biggest influencer? You can have
Yeah,
more than one if you've got, I know most of us have
yeah.
more than one.
Probably, this was really a mentor in my career, and it was a gentleman that I worked for 2 different times. But he was such an influence on my career because he had such a way of helping me understand what I was really good at and helping me to capitalize on that. And also, certainly bringing to the forefront what I wasn't so good at and how I could work on those things, but was really became a sounding board, took an interest in my career, advocated for me, hired me on 2 different occasions. And I just had tremendous respect for him. And we really clicked. We thought alike. And so I just learned a tremendous amount from him. And I've always been grateful for that. And we're still friends today.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
And this is going to be a fun question. What do you love most about what you get to do? What is the best part?
The Probably the best part, because one of the things that we do in our company is we lead peer advisory boards. We call them forums for women executives, senior level women executives, as well as women business owners. And in those peer advisory boards, I call them experiential learning opportunities because it's not curriculum based. These women are coming together. We have a methodology that we professionally facilitate these meetings, and we work to address real world issues that these women are dealing with in their business or their career.
Okay.
And so I think what is so fun for us is when we see somebody who's stuck in some way, and she comes into that board and she has this set of peers. It's in a safe, confidential environment, and these women become good friends over time as well. But these are safe people to talk to, and the light bulb goes on for her. And that group helps her get unstuck.
I love it.
And the ability to have influence on somebody's success is extremely, extremely rewarding. So that's really the most fun that we have,
Yeah.
both for our emerging leaders and our executives, because everybody goes through tough times.
Mhm.
And I even think back when I was an executive, I thought, oh, I could have used a peer group like this for myself during those days when I was an executive. It would have been so helpful. And I
Yeah.
see those women really, sometimes it just helps them gain clarity
Right.
or gain confidence that the decision they're making is the right
Yeah.
one.
Right.
Sometimes they're kind of operating in a vacuum. And when you're in a leadership position, if you're feeling a little bit uncertain
Mhm.
about this decision you want to make, or you're feeling out of your comfort zone, it can be dangerous to expose that politically because
Right.
you're the leader. You're supposed to have the answers.
Right. Right.
And your team needs you to exude confidence.
Yes.
And so if you're feeling that uncertainty inside, um, a lot of times they can come into those groups and they talk about what these issues are. When they walk out, they go, okay, I've got the confidence. I'm making the right decision. Because they'll come
Yeah.
out and say, here's what I'm working on. Here's what I'm thinking. Give me your feedback. Am I thinking about this right? What have I missed? And so it oftentimes just gives them the confidence to move forward because they are making the right decision.
And I love that because even, in the organizations that I've been in, leaders have always had leaders. Like even if you were a
Yes,
leader leading a team, you had a coach, you had somebody there
right,
for support because you're right. A lot of times when you're in those positions, you've got people counting on you to come
right,
out and lead. And if they see those weaknesses, then you're no longer this source that they trust to say, okay, you're leading me now, you know?
That's
And so
right.
I can absolutely understand that. And yes, sometimes as a leader, you've got those situations. And if you're doubting yourself just a little bit, I think what you're doing is just amazing. The whole idea of the peer support, I think that's incredible.
Well, and especially for business owners,
Hmm.
a lot of times they just don't have anyone to talk to.
Right.
They're making all of these decisions weigh on their shoulders. And if they own the business 100%, they don't have a partner to
Right.
talk to. And some of our women, they're in partnership with others, so they've got their partners. But it's they're operating a bit in a vacuum because they can't talk to their employees about a lot of these things. They
Right.
can talk to their CPA or their attorney, but that's different than sitting down and talking to a set of peers that
Hmm.
have been there, done that, had those experiences, have unique perspectives or expertise, and and it helps them to gain clarity. And what they tell me all the time, and the executives tell me this as well as the business owners, the biggest value I get is perspective. We get tunnel visioned in our company and the way we do things, in our industry and the way they do things. Some of the biggest aha moments are when somebody from a completely different
I
industry
agree.
says, "Have you ever considered this?"
Uh-huh.
And they go, "Well, no, I'd never thought of it that way."
Right. I
And
agree.
so,
That's one of the things I just did a blog and I talked about that. I talked
uh-huh.
about because I've never been in a position where I didn't have mentors. I've always had incredible
Yes.
mentors. And so I can't imagine not having that, but having networked and been in the field, you're right. There are a lot of people that never even know what that is. They don't know what
Right.
that's even like. And here I am thinking, I don't even know what it's like to be the other way. And so I think that's incredible because it does give them a different way to look at things. And sometimes having somebody in another field come in and say, hey, I don't maybe understand what you're doing here. But if I were looking at this and I can tell you how what's worked for me, they can offer different perspectives. So I
Right.
agree with you 100%. I talked about that as one of my number two or three things to do is to find peers and find them in your group doing the same thing and outside of your group
Right.
because they both bring value to the table. 100%. I
Exactly.
love it. I love it. I love it. All right. So now I'm going to ask the fun questions. And these weren't on there, but these are super easy. They're just what I call my rapid
I don't even
fire.
remember.
But no, they're just fun. So are you a morning or a night person?
A night person. I used
Are
to be a
you?
morning person. In my corporate America days, I
Yeah.
was definitely a
I
morning
would have
person.
never guessed that about you though.
But it's
Totally.
interesting as I started my own business and I
Uh-huh.
had just the flexibility
Yeah.
to work how I wanted to work. I started staying up later
Yeah.
because I don't have to get up and be anywhere.
Right.
My office is actually in my home
Yeah.
because previous to COVID-19,
Right.
I was going to clients.
Okay.
And so Jennifer Carter, our president, we both have home offices, and then we, get together from time to time when we're strategizing things. But we work well from home because we're typically out and about
Yeah.
all day, every day, and going to clients. They don't come to us,
Right.
so it's been easy. So it really changed kind of my morning routine as a result of that, and it allows me to decide I'm not going to do a meeting outside my office until 9:30, and then I get to miss the traffic
Yes.
of the morning, and so I'll go in and I'll catch up on a little email first thing, but I often find myself doing things of an evening. So that's one thing I have enjoyed about
Yeah.
having my own business and the flexibility
Right.
of that schedule. As an executive, especially when you're traveling all the time, you are really a slave to your
Right.
calendar. And you don't always own your own time. You get called into a lot of things. So that I've probably enjoyed that part more. And so now I probably hit the sack about midnight every night, and that was not the case
You're
during
like,
my
we know
corporate
who's up
career.
at night. Candace is up. You got a question.
So,
It's funny because I'm up early and, there were about 2 weeks when we first went into this pandemic. And of course, I think a lot of people our heads were just so engrossed in this. And like, I was sleeping like crazy, which was so crazy for me to do that.
uh-huh.
And I was like, I'd get up in the morning, I'd be like, oh, it's 8 o'clock. And I'm like, is it time to go to bed yet? So I had a little bit of that
I think
going on.
there were people that did what you did, and there were
Yes.
people that couldn't sleep at all
Yes,
because
I
they
was
were
sleeping
had
and I was
anxiety. Yeah.
sleeping late and staying up late. Well, now I'm back to my schedule, but I will tell you this, the benefits of having your own business. And I've been fortunate that I've been able to do that for a while too. So I'm with you. I appreciate that. I have like this idea that I can't really do anything before a certain time in the morning. So I really don't like to schedule anything before 11. And it's not because I'm not up. I just love my mornings.
I do love my mornings,
Yes.
but I get to ease into them a little
Yeah.
bit more than I did in corporate
Right.
life, which I really enjoy. I can read the paper,
Yes.
or I can go sit and just answer some email
Mhm.
and have my cup of coffee. So
You have the liberty to do that.
I have the liberty to do
Isn't
that.
it great?
It
It's
is
just, I was
great.
tell you,
Yeah.
I'm so spoiled.
Yeah,
I don't
it's
know if I
great.
could go back and do the other. I get it. All right. So dog or cat person?
Dog.
Dog. Do you have a
Yeah,
dog?
Not now.
Okay.
We have had a dog. We just haven't replaced the last dog that we lost. I love cats, but I'm allergic to them.
Gotcha.
And so can't live with one.
Yeah, that would not be good for you. All right, Tanis, what's your favorite food?
Oh, my goodness. I'm just not very picky.
Well, that's good.
So
That's great. No, I mean, we can go anywhere, right?
I love seafood, so I would probably have to say, seafood.
Okay.
One of my very favorite meals ever is when we went to Alaska. We took one of those seaplanes and we flew
Yeah.
out to this little resort and they literally caught a king salmon that day and cooked it up for us. And I thought that may be the best meal I ever had in my life.
That's awesome. And Alaska, I'm sure, was beautiful
It
too.
was fantastic.
That's
It was
awesome.
beautiful.
Awesome. And so this is one more fun question I got to ask you. So what do you like to do for fun when you're not motivating and encouraging and doing your speaking and all that?
I do a lot of reading.
Okay.
That's just kind of a personal thing, but we love to travel. And so that makes us so sad about the current events is that we can't travel because that's my husband and I, we both love to travel. We both kind of like doing the same things.
That's wonderful.
And so that really is our hobby. Fine wine is another hobby. So we love to do wine tastings and things of that nature. And a lot of times when we travel, if we're traveling to a place with vineyards nearby, we typically are doing a couple wine tastings.
Awesome.
And but we've traveled to Europe and we've been to Spain and Italy and France, and we always try to do some wine things while we're there. So
awesome. Any good books you're reading right now?
I read just a recently good book that was really meaningful to me. The name of the book is called Half Breed.
Okay.
And it was written by Letitia Wheeler. Letitia's an author here in Dallas.
Okay.
And this is about her growing up biracial.
Wow.
And she talks about that experience and about being biracial and the understanding that she now has in viewing the world from both Black and white and the experiences that both of those races have experienced.
Okay.
And kind of her thoughts about healing the racial divide. And it's just a beautifully, beautifully written book from her perspective. So
I'm all about reading. So
I really enjoyed that.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. This has been fun, Tanis. So if our listeners wanted to check you out and check your company out, and like I said, I think what you're doing is amazing. We've spoken before and I thought your story was incredible then. And so glad you're able to come on here and share it with us. But if they wanted to find you, where do they locate you at?
It's just ewfinternational.com. And they can log an inquiry on our website, or they can feel free to email me directly, which is Tanis, Tanis, at ewfinternational.com.
Awesome. And when this goes out, I'll make sure that we tag you and we put some information in there so they can find you. So any last little nuggets of information you want to share with us today? Anything you want to tell us about the company?
Just that we're adapting like everybody else is adapting. It's been an interesting experience because we had been discussing all of our programs today have been face-to-face to date, and we've had to quickly adapt and move our programs to virtual in order to still deliver them. And we've been talking about, hey, we ought to come up with a virtual emerging leader class and a virtual forum so that we can reach beyond the bounds of Dallas and not be constricted by face-to-face. This has given us a really great learning experience, real world, real time. So we're learning what works and what doesn't. And so I think very shortly you will see us looking to launch virtual programs as well as face-to-face programs.
I love it. And I would agree with you. I think we're all having to learn to navigate and adapt and change. And I think it's good. I think there's some good things that are coming out of that. I think we're actually in some ways going to be a little bit more efficient.
One of the things I hope comes out of the situation that's happening now, because when you think about diversity and how COVID-19 impacts women, impacts people of color, a lot of the populations, the industries that have been hit so hard have large populations of females in that industry. But I think the good that's coming out of that is companies have realized that flexible work hours can work. They've realized that working virtually can work. And I think that is actually good for women. Right. And I think it's brought a more humanistic approach to the workplace. I've had Zoom calls with women that have had their kids in their lap while we're talking, or they're holding their dog to keep the dog from barking. Somebody's cat walked across the screen.
That would be yesterday. Me. That would be me.
And so, but you know what? We all just laugh.
Yeah.
And we keep going, and it's shown that people can still be productive. Even in this situation. So I think that ultimately is good for women and some of the flexibility that we need as women. After all, we're the only ones that can give birth. And
this is true.
And so we'll always have, that scenario that we have to balance that our male colleagues don't. And I also think this has given our husbands and partners an opportunity to see what full-time childcare can be all about.
That would be true too.
We've had a lot of dads that are having to step up and help teach their kids, and mom and dad are both trying to work remotely from home, and so they're
Right.
having to balance that. So I think it'll be interesting to see if there's a bit of a paradigm shift
Yeah.
after all this when it comes to childcare and childbearing.
That's awesome. No, and I would agree with you on all of that.
Yeah.
It's been interesting. And yes, I do think there's some humanistic quality to being able to do what we're doing and
Yes.
navigating. When you were talking about the cat just today, I was trying to get on a Zoom and I had a cat sitting over the back of my chair with his head like right here. I'm like, this is going to be my Zoom today with this
Yeah.
cat. So anyways, but this has been great, Tanis. I'm so grateful you
Well,
were
thank
able to
you
be
for
on
having
here.
me.
Yes, thank you for sharing with us. You're doing amazing things. And with that, I do want to say to our listeners, if you enjoy our show, please give us a rating on both iTunes and Facebook, because we cannot do this without you. And check out our YouTube page and subscribe. And with that, I'm going to wrap up with our mantra. It's a great day to be brave. You might as well start now. You have the power to change your circumstances any day you decide. Let today be that day. Rise up, be amazing, be you, do you. All right, you guys take care, be safe, and be kind to one another. We'll see you next time.